I'd want to share with prospective MBA students the importance of making a plan for their personal finances throughout school. It is a very unusual situation to not work for 2 years, usually be stepping away from, a full-time job, and having this strange time in between where you are working at an internship, are making like real money. But it is quite costly, and like a lot of the things that you wouldn't expect outside of tuition and room and board, there's a lot more to it.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenna, and I'm currently an MBA candidate at the Duke Fuqua School of Business in my last semester of my second year and also graduating in a few weeks. Have you ever wondered how MBA students support themselves while in school? MBA students are traditionally known as being very wealthy, traveling a lot during long school breaks, and living quite lavish lifestyles. However, from my experience, while the travel can be quite frequent, MBAs at Fuqua come from all walks of life and support themselves in their 2 years in very, very different ways. If you're considering business school or even a different graduate school program, or even if you're in your first year of business school, this video is for you. I interviewed some of my peers about how they financially prepared for business school and how they're currently supporting themselves through business school. And they had some great advice to share for prospective students as well. Before we get into it, keep in mind that I interviewed second year students in their last term of school. So this is just one perspective. I'm sure if I had asked these same interview questions to first year students or even students that had just started their second year, some of the responses would have been different. So let's kick it off. First and foremost, everyone's financial situation is different and everyone comes from different circumstances, backgrounds, and means. Surprisingly, however, when I asked my peers how they currently felt about money on a scale from 1 to 10, most of them said they were at about a 5 or 6.
I would give myself a 5. I think compared to how I grew up and where I was in undergrad, I've come a really long way in terms of like personal finance and budgeting. But being in an MBA environment and being around so many financially savvy people, I think I still have a lot I really want to learn.
I would say 6. Because it could be much worse, but it also could be better.
One of my peers, Mateo, felt a little bit more satisfied with his money management habits.
I think I'm an 8, 7 or 8 actually, because I feel that during my second year I have not been as organized as I used to be during first year. So it could be a bit better, but still I know the restrictions that I have, so I used to work, I guess, backwards to figure out how much money I could spend monthly.
And one of my peers, Janyiah, felt worse than before business school, but was really optimistic that her situation would change soon after graduation and starting to work again.
Well, if we're talking pre-B school, I would say I was a 10. If we're talking currently in B school, I would say about a 2. In business school, I have actually taken on some credit card debt just to kind of have those trips and have fun. So I feel very anxious about that just because my whole life I've been pretty much overcoming a poverty mindset. And so I feel like you got yourself out of that cycle. You haven't been in it for a really long time and you put yourself back in. So I feel not too good about it, but I know I have the skills and abilities to get over the credit card debt. So in a couple of months, it'll be a 10 again.
This led them to have multiple feelings about their money.
Tight.
Tight.
So I'm not quite sure if this word is a feeling, but abundant. Business school coming in, I didn't really have a large salary before I started. And although I'm feeling some financial strain right now, I know that an income is coming. So it's just abundance for me. Like I realized that things will flow to me as they need to. And so that's really how I'm feeling about money right now.
2 words, cautiously optimistic.
One word to describe how I feel about money right now would be a word that sits between comfortable and strained. I definitely have an awareness, so I think that word would be aware.
There is a common misconception that in a 2-year full-time MBA program, students don't make any money. But in reality, there are a number of ways to earn through internships and on-campus jobs like teaching assistants, admissions fellows, etc. And even though it may not be as large as a full-time salary, it's something to help support yourself through school.
I also wish I had known that there are opportunities to work. So even if you don't have like a part-time job outside of school, on campuses, there's lots of opportunity. So I work as a research assistant with a professor, and I also work with admissions office. And so that is nice to have a little bit more of an income while I'm in school for 2 years.
I also have had jobs. So like my second year specifically, I worked and I had a consulting project with my internship, and I was able to get paid through them. I also TA, so like this morning I TA'd for MMS students, and I've also been proctoring exams and kind of finding little side jobs to also add extra cash and be able to do the extra little things I want to do.
The other way is by doing on-campus roles that allow me to get a little bit of cash so I can like buy my groceries, put gas into my car.
Many people will also take out loans or credit card debt.
But I've been really taking advantage of the fact that you can get like 0 APR for a certain amount of time, and like making sure I pay it off or pay as much as I can off within that period.
Most students will also have a sizable salary during their summer internship, and many will get a sign-on bonus which they can use to support themselves through school in their second year.
You can actually earn a bit more in your internship than I expected. I didn't know if they would be paid at all or just how much you would get paid. So that really helped me feel more confident, especially going into second year, that at least I could get an income during the internship, because it is really scary going into a 2-year program and knowing you're not going to be earning money.
I also use the salary that I got during my summer internship and the signing bonus that I received for my full-time offer.
And most students will come in with some amount of savings, and they'll be able to use money earned in tax returns and be able to rely on family, friends, and spouses for monetary support while they're in school.
So I am supporting myself first. It was my savings that is now depleted, and then it is. I do have a lot of supportive family and friends, so anytime it's like my birthday or a holiday, they know I don't work, so they send me money, and that really like goes a long way that I didn't realize that it would.
And I had to debate whether asking my parents for some support or getting a loan. So getting a student loan in Ecuador, the interest rate is as well high, so I potentially will be struggling right now. So I consider myself lucky to have had the support of my parents.
I am not supporting myself through school. I have a partner who works, and so he's been supporting us through school, which has been a lifesaver. I've also been quite aware of, my spending. I think a lot more people are going on more trips and things like that. So we've been more on the savings side since we want to purchase a home after graduation. So yeah, my support has been my husband.
Coming into business school, my peers financially prepared in many different ways, including paying off debts and recurring bills, living at home during the pandemic, selling their home in San Diego at the peak of the market, and ensuring to plan for the worst case scenario.
So I prepared for business school by really just paying off anything that I had. I knew that I wouldn't have income for 2 years, and so what I wanted to do is make sure I didn't have any reoccurring bills. So I paid off my car early, any credit card balances that I had, and then I just started throwing all of that extra money into my savings account. So it boosted my savings a little bit before I got here.
I will say that I think the silver lining of the pandemic was that, we could work remotely. And so I was living in LA before I moved, before I came to business school, and as I was applying, the pandemic hit and I ended up moving back home. I moved in with my parents, and so that allowed me to save money on rent. And I think that helped me kind of prepare for business school.
Prior to starting school, I actually got really lucky with a home sale in San Diego. So definitely had some personal savings, but was really fortunate to sell our home in San Diego at the peak of the market, so that was really helpful. I felt really comfortable about it because I also came to MBA school a lot later, so I've been working for a while, so I did have a decent amount of savings, and again with the home sale made me feel quite comfortable.
Living and working in Mexico before coming to my MBA program, so I had the advantage of earning dollars but spending in pesos, so I was able to actually save a lot of money, which was very helpful. But I did know that coming to the US, it would be a big sticker shock in terms of how much everything would cost. So I tried to make a rough budget of how much I thought I would spend in each area. I did a lot of research on different apartments in the area, but some things like food costs were kind of hard to predict. And a lot of people also told me that you're gonna spend a lot more than you think on activities and trips. So I did come in a little anxious, not really knowing exactly how much I would spend, but I did try to kind of budget for the worst case scenario.
However, there are still things that they wish they knew about money and money management before beginning business school full-time.
Something I wish I knew was that there's a lot of other expenses that are not necessarily academic, so it's amazing all the relationships that you build while you're in business school. But that means investing as well in trips or going out and so on. So I did not plan to travel as much as I did. So that was an extra expense that I did not account when I was coming to business school. So just have in mind that there will be other activities. So I will advise set some money aside for that.
What I wish I knew about money, this isn't really money, but I only had one credit card before I came to school, and I didn't really realize the benefits if you had like rewards cards and travel cards. And so I wish I had known about like how much money you can actually save by picking the right cards for your habits and behaviors and things that you actually enjoy. And so I feel like if I had like certain types of like Chase rewards or whatever the cards were, I could have saved a lot more money. That's pretty much all I wish I knew before. I knew that I had to be on a strict budget and save. And then I also kind of realized like what I consider a lot of money coming into business school is not a lot of money, even with like doing work in classes and like looking at balances on accounts. I'm like, whoa, this is a lot of money. And they're like, this is not a lot of money. You know, companies really want you to be fearless when it comes to dealing with capital. So those are one of the things that I learned about money since I got here.
Things I wish I knew a little bit more about money was probably a better understanding of taxes and what that meant, you know, for my personal finances. This year was the first year that I hired a CPA, and that just kind of really changed my outlook on, you know, saving and preparing and where to put my money and how to diversify and things like that. So, I mean, I definitely wish I knew more about that, especially coming into the MBA and changing my, you know, status as being employed versus being a student, and wish I had more of a heads up and had spoken to a professional before starting school to make the most of that transition.
I think that I wish I would have thought about how I could use my money most effectively in terms of like balancing debt and cash and the importance of like really understanding what that looks like. So I think that I was kind of recklessly using both interchangeably and not being really strategic about how I could use the benefits of a credit card and use cash to kind of keep myself afloat in terms of payments. And so if I could go back, I would definitely change that.
Finally, my business school friends had some incredible advice for prospective MBA students, from using it to evaluate which school to apply for and attend.
So I think it's really important to know that you can talk about finances with people. So I would recommend just like working it into one of your questions as you're exploring schools. And I think you can learn a lot about the culture and community of a school if you can see how open people are to speaking about it and how inclusive an environment it is. I think it's easy to come into an MBA thinking, oh, you know, everybody is going to be coming from a lot of money and you're going to earn so much money when you go, but there's really people of all different backgrounds and that came from all different industries. So it's okay to not exactly know and to talk to people and get tips and tricks and just find people that you can relate to and can kind of help you figure out, because it's a really different experience for everybody.
To being open-minded yet cautious about what you spend and making sure you actually spend on what's valuable to you.
Yeah, I think that oftentimes when we think about money, and I know I made a joke, or I always joke around about how money isn't real, I think we can't take it too seriously. Like, obviously you don't want to go completely into the red and like, oh, you know, hundreds of $1,000s in credit card debt. But I think that you have to find value in what you're getting out of it and make decisions based on, you know, what do you want out of your business school experience. I think at first I was really afraid of like going on the trips or doing the things because I was afraid of debt. But I also have to be realistic about like, what does my future income look like? What is my, you know, what can I actually afford in the term that I'm here and into the future, versus like being so risk adverse that I'm essentially managing my money in a way that limits me and my ability to like make connections and get the most I can out of business school.
I think, you should come like with an open mentality that things might change while you're doing your program. So you'll come with a structured plan on your finances, but just be mindful that things could change. So you might spend more during your first year, or during your second year, you might just decide to live with some roommates, so you will reduce your expenses. So there are ways to figure things out, so just have that in mind. And then on the other hand, also be cautious about how much money you will be spending, because it's nice to use the money now, but I bet it's pretty hard to be paying back for something you already experienced or lived. So it's different when you buy a house and you're living in your house and every day you are enjoying your house. This is something you already lived, so it might be a bit different when you're paying back. So just have that in mind as well.
To making a plan.
I'd want to share with prospective MBA students the importance of making a plan for their personal finances throughout school. It is a very unusual situation to not work for 2 years, usually be stepping away from, a full-time job, and having this strange time in between where you are working at an internship, are making like real money. But it is quite costly, and like a lot of the things that you wouldn't expect outside of tuition and room and board, there's a lot more to it with the events and trips and things like that. So I think like really having a plan and not just coming in completely just, I'll do whatever I feel. Having a plan of like where you want to spend your money and how you want to spend your time, I think would be really, really important and really beneficial to think about before coming in.
To making sure you're prepared by coming into school with as little debt as possible and as much savings as possible.
Prospective MBA students, first things first, try to come into business school with no debt. It makes things a lot easier. Second, whatever you think you have saved, maybe double it based on what your interests are. I think if I had doubled my savings, I would be fine. Was it possible for me to double it? No, but in hindsight, I would have just prepared a little bit more for like the experiences that I was gonna have that are quite priceless. The other thing is the credit card rewards that I spoke of earlier. If you plan on traveling or doing certain things, going on excursions, I would really recommend looking at what cards might be best for you and what you want to do, because I think that'll really set you up for success. And then last, remember, the money is coming, it's abundance, so it's just like a struggle period. But you'll get over it, and that's it.
So that's it, everyone. I hope these interviews with my Duke MBA peers were helpful for you. If you're considering business school, know that the 2 years are beyond worth it. And there are many creative ways to support yourself through school. You just need to find what works best for you and your personal goals and situation. If you like content like this, please make sure to smash that subscribe button, like the channel, and drop a comment down below. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.